You have a room in your house that you apologize for. Not out loud, but in the half second before a guest steps into it, when you say something like, "It's a bit of a mess in here," and you mean it. And you don't quite know why, because the furniture is fine and the paint is fine, and you spent real money on most of it. That little flinch is the whole reason you're here. You walk into a hotel room and your shoulders drop. You walk into your own living room and they don't. And for years you've assumed the difference is budget, square footage, a designer's eye you weren't born with. It isn't. After 15 years working in construction and design, walking through hundreds of homes and just as many hotels, I can tell you the gap between the two is made of details so small and so cheap that once you see them, you cannot unsee them. That's the promise of this video. By the time we reach number 1, you'll know exactly how to make a room feel like a hotel. And most of what I show you will cost less than a takeaway dinner. Some of it costs nothing at all. You'll be able to change it tonight, in the next hour, with a screwdriver you already own and a light switch you flipped 10,000 times without ever really looking at it. Here's what's actually happening when you walk into that hotel room and feel the calm wash over you. Your brain is not admiring the furniture. It's running a threat assessment, the way it does in every space you enter, scanning for clutter, for visual noise, for the dozens of tiny unresolved decisions that a cluttered room broadcasts. A hotel room has had every one of those decisions made for you and then quietly hidden. Your nervous system reads that as safety. It reads it as, someone took care of this. And the maddening truth is that you can give your own brain that exact signal, without a renovation, without a designer, without the budget you think you need. You just have to know which signals matter. So let me walk you through 11 of them, counting down to the one that changes everything. And I'll explain not just what to do, but why your brain responds to it the way it does. Because once you understand the why, you'll start seeing these fixes everywhere, and you'll never look at a room the same way again. We're starting at number 11, and it's so simple you might be tempted to skip it. Don't. White towels. That's it. That's the fix. But stay with me, because the reason it works tells you something about every other fix on this list. Walk into a bathroom stocked with a faded blue towel, a striped beige one, and that lone holiday towel from a guest who visited in 2016, and you feel tired before you've noticed a single thing about the tile or the vanity. You don't consciously think mismatched towels. What happens is faster and more primitive than thought. Your eye lands on the towels and finds no pattern, no order, nowhere to rest. And it keeps searching, and that low-grade searching is what you experience as the room feeling cluttered. Color coordination in a bathroom is nearly impossible once every towel came from a different set bought across 5 different years. Your eye genuinely doesn't know where to look. Now replace all of it with a stack of thick white towels, folded or rolled, sitting on an open shelf or a small tray. That's what you see in every upscale hotel, and the reason is not aesthetic snobbery. White resolves the search instantly. It doesn't compete with your wall color, your hardware, or your countertop. There's nothing for the eye to puzzle over, so the eye relaxes, and you relax with it. A solid set of white bath towels runs around $15, and the moment you swap them in, the room shifts from, "We've lived here a while," to, "Someone thought about this." And here's the part most people get backwards. White towels are easier to keep clean, not harder, because you can bleach them without watching the color fade. The thing you were avoiding for being precious is the thing that's actually low maintenance. Towels, though, are just the surface layer of this idea. The next fix takes the same principle and aims it at something living. Number 10. One real plant in a clean pot. Everyone tells you to add plants like it's a universal cure, and then you watch people get it wrong in 2 equal and opposite directions. Some turn the living room into a garden center, every windowsill crowded, and the eye starts searching all over again. Others give up and buy a dusty fake fern that announces itself as fake from across the room. Hotels do neither. They place one living plant in one simple, clean pot, on a side table, a shelf, a console, And that single point of life does something a dozen plants can't. Let me show you why. A real plant introduces tiny irregularity into a room, the slight asymmetry of a leaf, the soft unevenness of growth. And your brain, which is exhausted by the hard, straight lines of furniture and walls, reads that organic shape as restful. We're wired for it. But 1 is the dose, 6 is noise. So the move is restraint. 1 plant, 1 clean vessel. No wicker basket, no novelty pot shaped like an animal, no cluster of mismatched succulents fighting for attention. A single pothos in a white ceramic pot on a nightstand does more for a room than an entire shelf of artificial greenery, and it costs under $10 at most garden centers. Here's what almost nobody considers, and it matters more than the plant itself. The pot is the part that reads as designed or careless. A gorgeous plant sitting in its cheap black plastic nursery pot looks like you haven't finished. The same plant in a clean, intentional pot looks like a decision. The plant is the life. The pot is the design. Get the pot right, and you've spent $10 to make a room look cared for. And speaking of careless, the next detail is so small you've probably never once thought about it. And yet I promise you register it in every beautiful space you've ever walked into. Number 9. Your switch plates. Those little plastic rectangles beside every doorway. The ones that are probably faintly yellowed, maybe slightly cracked, wearing a few drips of paint from the last time someone touched up the wall. Nobody thinks about these. But here's who does. Every designer and every hotel on Earth. Walk into a boutique hotel room and look at the light switch. The plate will be clean, intact, and usually matched to the door hardware, matte black, brushed brass, or crisp white metal. Now, go look at yours. If they're the builder-grade plastic ones, slowly going the color of old piano keys, they are quietly dragging down every room they sit in. And the reason they matter so much for their size is that they sit at eye level, right beside the doorways your gaze passes through constantly. You don't look at them, you look past them dozens of times a day. And every time, that little flaw registers below the level of conscious thought. The good news is almost comic given the impact. Replacements cost about $3 each. Swapping them takes a screwdriver and roughly 30 seconds per plate. No electrician, no tools you don't own, nothing turned off at the breaker. And the shift is immediate, in a way that feels disproportionate to the effort. The walls read as more intentional. The trim looks cleaner. The whole room feels finished because you've removed one of the small, unresolved flaws your brain was quietly logging. $3. That kind of attention to finish, the willingness to fix the thing nobody notices, is exactly what separates a room that looks designed from one that looks merely furnished. And it sets up the next fix perfectly, because what you do with your curtains controls how expensive your entire room reads, and nearly everyone gets it wrong in precisely the same way. Number 8. Hang your curtains at the ceiling. I once walked into a client's living room with beautiful furniture, a good rug, a paint color I'd have chosen myself, and something was wrong. It took me 2 seconds to find it. The curtain rod sat right on top of the window frame, and the curtains barely cleared the sill. 2 sad little panels hovering halfway up the wall. The whole room felt short and cheap, despite every individual thing in it being well chosen. This is one of the most common mistakes I see in real homes, and it's worth understanding why it does so much damage. When you hang a rod right above the window, you draw a hard horizontal line across the middle of the wall, and your eye stops there. The wall is visually chopped in half, the ceiling feels lower than it is, and the room shrinks. Hotels do the opposite, every time. They mount the rod just below the ceiling line and extend it wider than the window frame on both sides, so the panels frame the glass rather than strangle it. The effect is something close to a magic trick. Your eye travels all the way up to the ceiling before it stops, so the walls read as taller, the windows read as bigger, and the whole room feels grander, even when you're standing under a perfectly standard 8-foot ceiling. The rod and brackets might run you $20 or $30. Floor-length panels falling from near the ceiling, instead of short ones perched above the frame, is the entire difference between a room that looks like a first apartment and one that looks like a suite. And when you pair curtains hung properly with the fix coming at number 4, the room stops looking like yours and starts looking like somewhere you'd pay to stay. We'll get there. First, look at your surfaces, because this next one costs nothing and changes more than anything you can buy. Number 7. Clear every surface. You already own beautiful countertops, nightstands, shelves. None of it counts for anything while it's buried under mail, 3 phone chargers, a lotion bottle, a fistful of keys, and a candle you lit once in 2019. Here's the mechanism behind why hotels feel so calm, and it's worth sitting with. Their surfaces are almost empty. Count what's on the nightstand in a high-end hotel room, and you'll usually find one thing, maybe a lamp and a small clock. That's the whole inventory. Every object you add to a surface is one more thing your eye has to catalog, one more unfinished story, one more silent demand on attention you didn't know you were paying. A cluttered surface isn't just untidy, it's a low hum of obligation that follows you around the room. The fix is free, and you can do it in the next 10 minutes. Pick one room, clear every surface completely bare, then add back exactly one intentional object per surface: a small tray, a single candle, a short stack of books. 1. That's the rule, and the discipline of the rule is the whole point. If this is already changing how you see your rooms, take a second and subscribe, because I make these the way I wish someone had explained them to me 15 years ago, and there's a lot more coming. Now here's the reframe that makes this stick. A crowded shelf says, "I ran out of storage." A shelf holding one framed photo and a single plant says, "I chose this." Same shelf, same room. Entirely different message to everyone who walks in, including you. And number 6 is where people undo all their good work, because it's the mistake that makes genuinely expensive things look cheap. Number 6. One metal finish per room. Everyone buys hardware they like, one piece at a time, and that's exactly how the trouble starts. A brushed nickel faucet because it was on sale, a chrome towel bar because it matched the shower head, a brass light fixture because brass was having a moment, black cabinet poles because they looked modern that year. Every one of those choices is defensible on its own. Put them in the same small bathroom, and it looks like 4 different people decorated it on 4 different days, none of them speaking to the others. Here's why your eye revolts at this, even when it can't name the problem. Mixed metals give your brain 4 separate things to track: 4 temperatures, 4 reflections, 4 little arguments happening at once. The room feels busy and unresolved no matter how nice each piece actually is. Hotels commit. One metal finish per space. If the bathroom is brass, then the towel bars are brass. The light fixture is brass. The cabinet poles are brass. And suddenly everything is speaking the same language. That single decision is most of what makes a room feel cohesive, and it's something most homeowners never consciously consider until they see the before and after side by side. So go and count the metal finishes in your bathroom right now. More than 2, and you've found something worth fixing. You don't have to replace everything at once, which is the part that scares people off. Start with the most visible pieces, usually the light fixture and the cabinet poles, and match those to the faucet you're keeping. In most bathrooms, that's under $50 and an afternoon. Getting the hardware to agree with itself matters more than almost anything you'll add. But the next move is one most homeowners never even think to make, and it's one of the easiest ways to make a room feel expensive. Number 5. Put a bench where you wouldn't expect one. Here's a move you'll find in nearly every luxury hotel room and almost never in a real home. A bench. Not a sofa, not an armchair, a small upholstered bench at the foot of the bed, or in the entryway, or even inside a generous bathroom. People skip this because they think of a bench as extra seating, and they don't need extra seating, so they never buy one. But seating isn't the job. The job is the visual layer. A bench at the foot of the bed gives the eye a stopping point, a soft, horizontal note that makes the room feel furnished and complete. Without it, the bed simply ends, and there's a flat stretch of empty floor where the room just trails off. Think about it this way. Picture a bedroom with a bed and two nightstands. Functional. Also, flat. A little unfinished, the way a sentence feels without its last few words. Now add a low bench at the foot of the bed in a fabric that complements the room. Instantly there's depth, a sense of layers stacked front to back, and the whole space reads as deliberate and expensive. A bench in an entryway does the same work for a different reason, giving a transitional space a purpose and a structure, announcing that someone designed this corner rather than ignoring it. A simple upholstered bench can be found for around $30, and it changes the feel of the entire room out of all proportion to the price. But be careful here, because if you skip what's coming next, you're leaving the single highest impact change on the table for about $12. And I've watched it transform a room in the time it takes to install. Number 4. Install a dimmer switch. Hotels never blast a room with full-strength overhead light. Never. And there is a real reason rooted in how your eyes and your nervous system actually work. Harsh, even, full brightness light flattens everything. It erases shadow, kills texture, and gives a room the emotional temperature of a waiting room. Because that flat, clinical brightness is precisely the light we associate with offices, hospitals, and places we'd rather not be. A dimmer switch costs around $12 and takes about 10 minutes to fit. Put one on a living room ceiling fixture, a bedroom light, even a hallway, and you've handed yourself a dial that controls the entire mood of the room. At midday, run it bright. That's fine. That's what daylight wants. Then, in the evening, take it down to 40% and watch the same room become a lounge. The walls warm. The corners soften into shadow. The space stops performing and starts resting. And so do you. Because your body reads dimming light as the day winding down and quietly begins to follow it. I once put a dimmer on a basic builder-grade fixture in a client's dining room. Changed nothing else, not one other thing, and she called me 2 days later, convinced she'd somehow renovated the room. She hadn't touched anything but the brightness. Lighting is the single most overlooked element in home design, and it connects directly to number 1 in a way you won't see coming yet. For now, just hold on to this. A $12 dimmer does more for how a room feels than most $100 accessories ever will. And on the theme of enormous impact for almost no money, the next fix once completely changed how I saw a room I'd written off as too small to save. Number 3. One oversized mirror. The room I'm thinking of was a narrow hallway with no natural light, the kind of space that feels like a tunnel you pass through quickly. The homeowner leaned a single, large mirror, roughly 3 feet by 5, against the end wall. That was the entire intervention. The hallway instantly felt twice as deep and twice as bright, and nothing structural had changed at all. That's the power of one oversized mirror, and it's pure optics in the most literal sense. A large mirror takes whatever light exists, from a window, a lamp, a doorway, and bounces it back into the room, doubling the brightness your eye perceives. It also gives your brain a second apparent depth of field. So, a small space reads as larger because part of what you're seeing is reflected distance. Hotels lean on this constantly, in lobbies and in smaller rooms especially. And yet most people only ever think of mirrors as a bathroom object. Put a big one in a living room, a hallway, a dining area, or simply leaned against a bedroom wall, and the room opens up in a way that surprises everyone who walks in, including you, every time. If you've made it this far, you already understand more about making a room feel like a hotel than most homeowners ever will. And you don't need an antique or a designer piece to do it. A simple, large mirror with a thin frame, or no frame at all, costs somewhere between $20 and $50 and does the work of a window you'll never have to install. The contrast is stark. A dark, closed-in room with no mirror feels like a box. The same room, with one large mirror catching the light from a lamp, feels airy and intentional. Good design only holds, though, when the foundation underneath it is right. And the next fix is the one hotels spend the most money on and homeowners most consistently resist. Number 2. Commit to white bedding. Ask yourself honestly, when did you last walk into a genuinely luxurious hotel and find patterned sheets or a burgundy comforter on the bed? You didn't. Every high-end hotel on earth uses white duvet, white sheets, white pillows, and they do it on purpose, not for lack of imagination. White bedding makes a bed look clean, deeply layered, and expansive, and it makes everything else in the room step back, so the bed becomes the clear center of the space. There's a reason these beds photograph the way they do, and it's the same reason they feel the way they do in person. With no pattern to track and no dark mass pulling the eye down, the bed reads as a single, calm field. And calm is the entire product a hotel is selling you. Most homeowners resist this, and I understand why. White sounds boring, or impractical, or like something you'll ruin in a week. But here's the truth underneath the worry. White bedding isn't about being precious with your bed. It's about giving the room a clean, visual foundation that everything else can rest against. Patterned or dark bedding makes a bedroom feel smaller and busier because it adds visual weight exactly where you spend the most time looking. An all-white, layered bed makes the very same room feel open, quiet, and considered. A good white duvet cover and pillow set runs around $40. And the moment you make the change, your bedroom stops looking decorated and starts looking like a suite. And now we arrive at number 1, the single most important change on this entire list, and the one that surprised me most when I finally understood what hotels were doing that the rest of us weren't. Number 1. Turn off the overhead light. This is the secret hiding in plain sight in every luxury hotel room you've ever stayed in. And once you see it, you'll never miss it again. Go back to the last great hotel room you walked into and ask yourself, was the ceiling light on? Almost certainly not. There were lamps on the nightstands, perhaps a floor lamp in a corner, a sconce beside the mirror, and the room glowed with warm pools of light rather than a single flat wash from above. That is the biggest difference between a room that feels expensive and one that feels builder grade, and it costs nothing to copy. Overhead light pours down evenly and erases everything that gives a room dimension. It flattens texture, kills the shadows that let your eye read depth, and gives the whole space the affectless brightness of a place built for efficiency rather than rest. Lamps do the opposite. Each one creates a pocket of warmth low in the room, at the height where you actually live. And the spaces between those pools fall into soft shadow. And that interplay of light and dark is what your brain reads as depth, intimacy, calm. It's the difference between a room lit for a task and a room lit for a life. For 8 o'clock on a Tuesday when the day is finally letting go of you. And here's the best part, the part that makes this the right place to end. It costs nothing. Tonight, turn off your overhead light. Switch on 2 or 3 lamps instead. Sit down in the middle of the room and just look. The walls will warm. The furniture will find its shape again. The room will go quiet in a way you can feel in your body. You will not believe it's the same room you were apologizing for this morning. So here's the reframe I want you to keep, the one that changes how you see your home permanently. You've spent years assuming the gap between your house and the hotel was money, that calm was something you buy. It isn't. Calm is something you subtract. Every fix on this list, the bare surfaces, the single plant, the one metal finish, the lamps glowing instead of the ceiling blazing, is really the same move repeated, removing the small visual decisions your brain has been quietly carrying so the room can finally hold still. A hotel doesn't feel expensive because of what's in it. It feels expensive because of everything that isn't. Your home already has the furniture, the paint, the bones. What it's missing isn't more, it's less, placed on purpose. Start with the overhead light tonight, and watch a room you thought you'd settled for become one you actually want to sit in.